Hello and good evening, I would like to say. Hello to Sweden here in Malmö. Very nice to be here and nice to see you in the audience. I'd like to talk about BlueSky. You might have heard of X or Twitter or Mastodon, these social media things, and does it have anything to do with PowerShell? Is it an interesting topic? We will find out in the next 30 minutes. And I got a lot of demos that I want you to execute on your own with your own account. And let me talk a little bit about my motivation. I will show the slide where you can download the GitHub repo in just a second. But let us first of all talk a little bit about the topic itself. The problem here in PowerShell Conference Europe, I have the pleasure that I've been here a couple of times, so since the very beginning. If I might be honest, I would say it was super, super exciting in the early years because everything was new. And all of a sudden we found out, okay, the people are getting smarter, their knowledge is increasing. And if you look at the schedule today, the topics totally changed. We have one deep dive after the other. And to be honest, you might know that I'm the one from the organizational team that is responsible for publishing the videos. One of the reasons that I do this is simply I want to make sure as good as I can that these videos are available. And to be honest, not for you. To be honest, for me, so that I can look it up again and again and pause it and can work on it. Why do I tell this? Because I personally have the idea that there are a couple of things that are left out, some basic introductory topics. And that is the reason why today I want to talk about REST APIs, a topic that you might have heard of, and do this with the example of the BlueSky network. And as you might see on this picture, you wouldn't mind that I'm a little bit proud of something like that. I want to talk about my hobbies. This is the way we do it, right? And of course, my hobby is my partner at home, number one. I love cycling and I love PowerShell, right? And for the Dutch people in the house, you might recognize this. As Stedetocht, I had the pleasure to do this a couple of times. And that's my personal pride. And if people like you love cycling, I know there are a couple of you, let's chat this evening. But now back to the actual topic. If you discuss today about BlueSky, it's very likely that you run into political discussions. And I don't name the topics here or the people because I don't care. I don't care on the stage. And I can prove that because I have all the social media accounts, and I desperately try to fill them all. I don't have the opinion that the X network is a forbidden network and that Mastodon is the only one that counts. To me, it's simply I want to reach out to you and I want to get input from you. So the main thing that really excites me is where are all the people? So I have to confess, sometimes I even use Facebook, which is not my cup of tea, but I know people who only live in Facebook. So it's not about politics here on the stage, but we can't ignore that if we just focus on these three social networks, there is a big controversial discussion. And actually, in terms of technique, I don't like it. Because my main point is I love Twitter because of the open API that they provided before they became X. And I'm not really into that business anymore. Maybe you can have a pro account, pay a lot of money, and maybe then things change. But the ecosystem in Xwitter, how I call it, dramatically changed. It's not that open network that it was before. Mastodon, the Fediverse, is great, and it's a very niche thing from my point of view. Yeah, but it's also a niche thing. So try out who is on the Fediverse, on the Mastodon. And if I may be honest here on the stage, I actually provided a session proposal, I guess, last year or 2 years ago. It was declined believe it or not. So the organizing team, so my colleagues, so no, that's not a topic. But I don't give up. So I tried, okay, there is a third one in the house, the BlueSky network, which is more or less what Twitter was before. Run by, in the beginning, the same people, the same investors. It changed now a little bit. And they try to get that political stuff a little bit more out of the way. They're super polite. The problem is always the same. The more people you have, the more problems you have. It's obvious. No? So what I want to talk about today is simply BlueSky is, from a technical perspective, super, super interesting. And very comparable to the Fediverse, to Mastodon. And that is the reason why I thought it was interesting to show you how you can deal with BlueSky in terms of PowerShell. There's one more thing. I don't know if you're aware of that. Actually, it would make sense to love the Mastodon network because it's run by a German. So from that perspective, I'm also German. I would like that this one is the big, good network. But anyhow, as I mentioned again, I want to mention again, it's just about technique, right? That is what I'm interested in. As I mentioned before, I always get the opinion that we have one deep dive after the other. And there are so many talks that I watch 2 years, 3 years later, because that is that moment in time where I need it. And we had a lot of talks about the Microsoft Graph API or Graph API. And I don't know what's your opinion. We can chat about that later. I think it's very complicated, but it's also very interesting. But the Microsoft Graph API is based on open standards and open protocols. So why not use this technology with another network, with another service? And I think you will see that the BlueSky network is properly set up. They really take care about the technique. They develop slowly. And that might be the biggest difference if you compare that to this ever-changing world of Microsoft, where nothing is tomorrow as it was today. And to me, yes, it's great that they are so innovative, but on the other hand, it's hard to keep up. And always do not think about you yourself. Think about your colleagues. PowerShell is meant for the mere mortal admin from my perspective. At least it is one target audience, and they should also know what's going on. And it's really hard to keep up. That's the reason why you're here on the conference, right? Let's be honest. Let's jump into that. I've got a lot of demos. I don't want to talk about the slides, but I do like some slides too, because they sometimes they help to understand a few things. This user account is the boss, the current CEO of BlueSky. That's the reason why I took her as an example. Yeah, and if you want to follow me along, did I mention that I got some swag? Sorry. You will see you get a task later. Just follow me along and we will jump right into the BlueSky network. So if you cloned that report or you listen to the video later on and do that after that, you will find all the files and maybe a little bit more, the slides, etc. Maybe some questions that you ask. Maybe I put some additional examples into the repo. You will also find that on the PowerShell Conf EU repository. Huh? Okay, let's jump into this. Oh, sorry. I already opened it up. So I go back here. Oh, wait a second. This is not I opened up all the files and then I forgot the most important one, the first one, right? That is real life. Okay, this is number A. So let's start with that. There is a certain motivation why I always look for examples like this. The thing I love most is instructing people. And gladly, in most cases, I get paid for that. I do a lot of trainings, do a lot of workshops, consulting, and I'm always evangelizing the people how things work. And if you think about REST APIs, the one thing that knows the mere mortal admin, the normal guy, your customer, they know curl. And many people do not actually know that a curl exe is integrated in Windows. So why not give it a try and do some hello world stuff? The first examples that you can follow along are completely anonymous. So you don't need to have an account right yet. You can clone it. The files are there. And then you simply press F8. And then you see you get a response in the case that the server, the network works and you can reach the server. Curl exe is, from my point of view, pretty interesting because I always look up for examples first, because I don't like to read all the documentation. Nobody does. So I always look for some examples, and I usually don't find PowerShell examples, as we all know. But in most cases, or at least in many cases, you find a lot of examples focusing on Linux admins, providing examples with curl.exe and stuff like that. And it is super easy to translate, as you might know, curl exe to Invoke-RestMethod. It's not the same, but it's very comparable. And as you can see here, if you call this simply by curl, what you could do exactly the same on a Linux box, then you get back this string, which, it seems to be a JSON file, the usual thing. And now we know it would be way easier to simply call the same URL, the same address with Invoke-RestMethod, and that's it. And so we got to reach out to the BlueSky network. At that point in time, it's getting a little bit complicated, and I don't want to talk too long about the underlying terminology, but you have to be aware this idea of developing things slowly lead to a situation that you are very carefully, you want to set up the protocols on a broad foundation, and that leads to the situation that sometimes things are a little bit hard to understand. So for the BlueSky people, what you interact with on first glance is just a client. And actually, they don't care too much about the client. They're focusing on the underlying technology. And if you see that here, you see these things in a whole amount of different URLs. The one is the network. The other thing focuses on a special protocol and stuff like that. But if you've got the example once, it's pretty easy to work on these things. So as we all know, the nice thing about Invoke-WebRequest compared to Invoke-RestMethod is that you get a little bit more of umbrella information. So if I do the same thing again with Invoke-WebRequest, it looks like this. Just a second, so that you can read it. Come on. They can develop artificial intelligence, but they have not yet found an awesome trackpad, right? Still working on that. Come on. CLS, clear screen. Okay, so one more time. F8. And you see the status code, status description. You might think that this is a little bit too easy for the target audience here in the room. I want to motivate you to show this to your colleagues. As I told you before, this is some good entry-level information from my point of view. And if we go along the examples here, you see many things are actually pretty well understandable on first glance, but you have to find the proper URLs, the proper addresses to really know what you're doing over there. And that can be a little bit complicated. But anyhow, as I told you, the CEO of BlueSky is this lady with a given name J. And if we just want to query the user account, you can see here is the data that comes back from her user profile. And as you can see here in the middle, CEO of BlueSky. She's a very vocal person, so she's a great starting point to follow her. And of course, the next thing is to follow PSConfEU and some other people that you already know. There is one interesting thing here. You see a term that is called DID here above. I can call that again to make it a little bit more understandable. You see this DID, which stands for decentralized ID, is something that I would translate with something like a GUID, a global identifier that will never change. And for example, if you change your name because maybe you marry, this DID will stay the same. And since BlueSky in its inner, in its origin, in its inner philosophy, is also a federated service, we come to that later, because it's still in development, but it's meant to be federated. So that means this messaging function that might be comparable to Twitter is actually nothing else than an example, right, for what you can do with it. And you can do with these things later on. I will talk about some colleagues who are doing the strangest things with the underlying AT protocol. Stay tuned, we will talk about that. Let's check another handle. It's obvious that we want to talk about PSConfEU, so you can do that along with me. And now that I have this in my mind, I want to show you one neat little tricky thing that we implemented. You can use the handles that are provided by BlueSky, just like Jay did. You saw that a minute ago. But you can also use one of your own domains. And it's okay if you just simply use the domain name itself, but you can also use a subdomain. I talk about that in a second. It is super easy. I show you how that can be done. It is super easy to implement that. That is also possible in the Mastodon network, in the Fediverse. The problem is it's way more complicated when you try to do this. In BlueSky, it's just 2 clicks and that's it. And how do they do this? As you can see here, you simply have to create a DNS record in your own domain namespace for the AT protocol. AT protocol is the underlying protocol. And that's it. And since it's a service protocol, it starts with this underscore. That's the thing we know. Let's try another example to make it a little bit more interesting. I didn't want a handle just like Butz.io, which is a domain name that I use. I wanted something like, let me show you. That would be the normal way. I wanted something like Thorsten Butz.io, because that's my given name. And that is also relatively simple. You only have to create if you have access to your domain records, which you should have. All you have to do is simply to create a subdomain, and that's it. And then your handle is given name, surname, .nl.com, whatever your domain is that you would like to use. Yeah, and try this here. This is the first steps. That is very, very simple as a starter. And you see, you can, for example, if you have an apprentice in your company, the young people are very interested in those things, usually. So you can tell them, hey, you can learn PowerShell and do some messaging on social media. Let's go one step further. And I'll be a little bit quicker now. So, because you can try out anything on your own. That might be a little bit easier. I have yet another handle. As you might think, I don't want to spoil my real timeline with a bunch of test messages. So I created yet another account for my development that goes by the name dev.butz.io, just a test account. And let's see if there is something like a post. That is what it's called. And let's see if I did something over there. So you see here is the DID. And now you can get all the information about the user account, etc. Right? You can check this out. Wait a second. if I want this one, and I have to implement this. And now here, you can see this is my information. One more thing, you might want to search for users. You can do that in the graphical user interface, in the web interface, but it might be a little bit more interesting to do this here. And yeah, what's the obvious keyword? Let's say PSConfEU, and we will find out. Okay, let's find if there are some actors. Actors are acting accounts, of course. And let's see if we find a couple of people. And let me just clean that here so it's a little bit more obvious to see. You see, we found quite a number of accounts. You see, Rob is all over the places. Thumbs up, well done. But of course, the PSConfEU account was found. I was found, my test account was found. But why, you might ask? The answer is simple. You can also provide a description when you create an account. We should do so. And then you see on the right-hand side, now it's a little bit too wide, but you see here in the description, the term is mentioned. That is the reason why I found these things. Yeah, now you can find out things you like. You can try out if you find something interesting. And to be honest, again, one reason why I wanted to deliver this session is simply I really want to motivate you to join this network. And as I mentioned in the beginning, actually, I don't care what is the best network as long as we share the network. And I think BlueSky is right at the moment the sweet spot. That can be wrong a year ahead. Some people like LinkedIn, but to be honest, to create some pictures and upload it from the bike tour and the pouring rain on LinkedIn, that doesn't fit from my point of view. So I like things like this. Now let's talk about some posts. And yet now is the question, which handle do we have here in the variable? Which user account? And yeah, it might be that I have not yet posted anything. Let's try out. As null array, right? Nothing back, but we can change that easily because I can say, let's find out what J did. And we go back and check out if she posted something. And you see, she's a very outspoken person. She posted a lot, and if you just want to have the text, then it's something like that. And you already see it's a great place to understand, to try out working with REST APIs. Because if you now think, okay, my boss does not pay me for this, correct. But if you talk about Microsoft Graph, if you talk about ServiceNow, if you talk about application X, Y, and Z, you will see, yeah, in many cases, they have REST APIs. And the underlying philosophy is very, very comparable. So everything you learn here, just out of fun, can be used in another context later on. I heavily use this to explain on an easier level the things that we later on do in the Graph API in my workshops. So anyhow, this is the first step. There is more demo to come. I just have to observe the clock. But let me just show you what I did in the code. This is the custom handle that we talked about. And it's just, you go into the settings, it is clicking twice, you add the required text string in your DNS zone, and you're good to go. I think that's a great chance to get a good name and to keep it all over the places. The next thing is, the second and the final step, of course, is everything we did so far, we did anonymously. So you didn't really have to have an account. You can read it just like this. But the real magic is doing things authenticated. And now it's getting really interesting. Because BlueSky more or less pushes you to use API keys. That's the first thing you should always do. One simple reason is you can integrate multi-factor authentication, which can be a problem working on REST APIs, because you don't want to sit there with your phone and do the second factor. So they really push you towards creating an API key. You can use this, and if this one get lost, for example, I show you this unattended, so I can simply remove it, and my password with a strong authentication remains the same. So this is the second thing that you should do in BlueSky. And now it looks like that. And as you can see, this is nothing else than a password, actually. And of course, I already removed that after I created the screenshot. So don't try that. You can, but it will not bring you anything interesting. So let's go to the follow along things, and let's see that very quick. I don't want to go here line by line because I assume that you already know this. Again, the curl example for the Linux guys, all those who love this. And now let's go to the PowerShell path. And again, you see I got my handle here and I get my password so that you don't see it. I put it in a text file. You can also save this as a secure string or in any technology that you like. For demo reasons, I just created a text file and put it in there. So I load it into memory. I create the required header. This is the things that we usually do. We need some JSON content. And now again, I use Invoke-WebRequest here, and I use the headers to authenticate. And I'm excited. Now the thing that is always a little bit of a the thing that creates a little tension. Will it work? I got no error. So what did I do now? Actually, I bought a ticket. I went to the ticket shop and said, hey, that's me. Here's my password. I would like to join in and do something. And then I get a session. And in my session variable, I find a JSON web token, a JOT. And as you might know, that is exactly the same that you use in the Graph API and in many, many other places. The idea of a JSON web token is that you actually get two tokens, something like a ticket that you can use for a longer period of time, something like this. This is good for 4 days. And then you get, when you get to a certain shop and you want to get something, maybe they do print something on it so that you can use it only once. So the idea is they give you a long-lasting ticket and then another one, which is a little bit, which is not valid so long. The problem is you really can't read these JSON web tokens. So I do one thing that you already might know. I send it to the clipboard, and then I can open up the famous Microsoft website jot.ms. I put it here, and you can translate it. This is one of the things you will see in any workshop about any technology that deals with it, right? And now you can translate what's going on here. You see how long it's valid, etc. The things are explained here. That's a nice website. But since we're doing PowerShell, I want to show you something else. There is also a nice module. There are many modules. I use this one, jot details. I already installed it. There is exactly one command. And if I use this one here, you will see my refresh token is translated in a nice way. You can see the expiry date. You see it is valid until September. And you see this one. And you see it does not last so long. So that's the main idea of authentication. So in a certain time frame, I can use this ticket now and do things. And now very quick, what I want to do is post something, right? You saw just that my dev account didn't post anything because I delete it. It's just crap. But let's find out how you post something. By the way, they prefer the verb post. There's always a long discussion because in the Mastodon network, it's called a toot. Should we now do a scoot or a skeet or whatsoever? And Jay decided in a friendly way that we should use post. That is simple. So let's find out how this works, posting. And if you follow me, you can search for dev.butz.io and you will see what's going on. You can't do that on the video, but try that on your own. Let's see how that works. This is my header and some additional information about the data that I want to send. And this here along is simply the post. And you see below, nothing special happened. Looked good. Yeah, and now we do something that is easy. Not so PowerShelly. Well, we can simply look it up here, right? And we can see if there is a post. And this is what I just posted, right? 16:34. This is exactly the time now. I can like it. I can also, I could delete it here, of course, but I don't want to because I want to show you how that is done. Here, one more thing, yet another post. I always think that whatever language you like, use the language the way it is intended to be used. And in terms of PowerShell, it's all about simplicity. It's all about objects. And it's all about pipelining. So, of course, I need to show something that has to do with pipelining. And if you want to pipeline something, it's just like this. So let's go back here. And you see PowerShell loves pipelining. That's the way it is. And now we go back to my final example, because you can also clean up these files. And yeah, the way you do it is pretty comparable. You just call another address, another URL, and if you simply want to delete your last post, this is this. And now we have to be careful because everything that I did before doesn't really delete anything. I just defined the HTTP request, right? And if I go now and click F8, then you will see that one of those items disappeared. If I go here, my post, I got one left. And I got another example here below how you can literally delete everything. So these items are meant to be as simple as can be. That is the reason why I want to show you, to really work on some clean examples. I hope they work for you so that you can use it in your own training, educating your apprentices, your colleagues, stuff like that. You might have noticed that I use cursor here. Cursor is yet another fork of Visual Studio Code. No matter what you use, if you use the GitHub integration in VS Code, what is shown in almost any other talk, if you use cursor, do whatever you like. It is disgustingly easy to create an advanced function here. I don't show you. If you tell them, create an advanced function, it will do a new post and you're ready to go. If you tell them, create a module, it's disgustingly easy. I don't want to show you. So do yourself a favor. Don't do the high-level stuff. Do the basic things so that you have the foundation. What I find out is it's pretty easy to set up a big project, but it's very hard to maintain it if you do not understand your own foundation, because every 30 seconds you let the engine do what actually was our job 3 years ago. So that is the reason why I wanted to show you this. If you have any questions related to that, let me know. We started a little bit later, so I'm a little bit overdue with the time, but I guess you don't mind. And since we have the social event later on, we can chat in an easy atmosphere. I want to go back one last time to the the PowerPoint slides, I added a screenshot of these things so that if you don't know that yet, that it's a little bit easier to find and try out. So this is what you just saw. A very, very good thing is the documentation. In many cases, it is, from my point of view, it is already too detailed. But documentation is getting more and more important. You know why? Because you can tell your IDE, there is the documentation, read it and create the module. It is unbelievably easy, but in that sense, BlueSky is definitely worth a look, believe me. So, now you can take a picture. If you want some swag, you have to earn it. Okay, and I got some swag for something that is very useful. Shout out and thank you to token2.com. I don't want to advertise here, but in this case I do, because they provided us a couple of multi-factor authentication tokens for free. USB-C, I want to give it to you, but you have to earn it. Do yourself a favor, try that out. Best case is with your notebook. And if I see your post and you see me this evening or in 10 minutes, come to me. And as long as I have one, you can get one. So just try this out. Take a picture if you want to. And then we're almost done. Okay. Yes, make microblogging great again. To be honest, I love the old world of Twitter, and not because of its current owner, but because all of you were there, and now you're separated throughout the world. I hope that microblogging will be great again, and in that sense, I want to show you one last item just here on the slide. Do we really have to decide if we go to the Fediverse or if we go to BlueSky? I think we shouldn't. It should be integrated. It is not that easy today, but there is a service that is pretty interesting, and we use it here at the PowerShell Conference. So you will also find our BlueSky accounts as a kind of proxy account in the Fediverse. So take a look at that, and if you wonder why do these things look little bit different, then you will find out it's just a bridged account from the one social network to the other. And I really, really hope that within a not too long time period, that it will no longer be necessary to use such a service, so that the different services can simply communicate. Technically, this is absolutely possible. They just have to integrate a couple of things. Yeah, but there is a big controversy if people want that or not. But check out, we got that. We use that, so we don't want to nail you into an ecosystem that we like. No, be wherever you are, but have a look at that. I think it's super interesting. Questions? Yes.
I didn't know the token translator. Are there these informations about the expiring date and so on in every token?
The question was, I can go back so that we see that again. You didn't know this website, which doesn't do anything else than the module did. So it is a standard JSON web token. So you hear where it comes from, and yeah, it is simply encoded. And you see over there the red items they are translated below, where it's also red, and the blue into the blue, and the green into the green. Yeah, that's a standard. It's simply translated. It is encoded in whatever. I do not know out of my head, but any base something encoding. Yeah. Another question.
Not related to it, but can you maybe explain a little bit more in detail the concept of those kind of web token, I mean the access token and
the refresh token? Yeah, the question was, can I explain a little bit more about the refresh token and the access token? So the main idea is that, think about Kerberos authentication. If you listen to some people that explain how Kerberos authentication works, they will very likely create a picture where you go to a fair, something like Disney World. I don't want to make advertisements, but anybody knows that. So think about, you have a ticket that you can buy to entry the fantasy world. And this is something like an access token. But this is something that you get once, and you can keep it for a longer period of time. But it might be that in this first level token, not everything is integrated. So you have to pay separately for some additional services. So you can go to the ticket shop and say, today I want to do this and this and this. And so they fill your token. That is something that many people explain, like how Kerberos authentication works. You get a ticket granting ticket, and then you go to a distinct server. You knock on the server's door and say, here, it's me. Could you allow me to come in? And then you get another short-lived with a short lifetime ticket just to enter this server. And that is the same idea here. You get authenticated, but the actual authorization to create a post is not done by this umbrella ticket. Let me explain it like that. It's done by the actual access token that is refreshed very, very often. Why do they do this? If you could access everything with that, what is in Kerberos ticket granting ticket, what here is called the access token. Think about someone steals that ticket. Then he or she could use it for 3 months. And to avoid this problem, they authenticate you in 2 steps. So you have to have the first level ticket, and then you get the actual access token. So if this one is revoked, it doesn't matter any longer that it has been stolen. That's simply for security purposes. That is on a high level what it is meant for. And you will find that all over the places. That is more or less the same that, as mentioned a couple of times, Graph API uses. In Graph API, everything is more complicated. So the next thing that you will see in Graph API, you have scopes that you have to enable. So that is just like a 3rd level key to open yet another door. But to come there, you have to have the 1st level and the 2nd level authorization. Pretty complicated. Does that answer the question on a high level? Yeah. Check out the module. I do like it. And in terms of presentation, the website is great. Any more questions? So feel free. I check out the social media in a second, and hopefully we meet again in just a couple of in an hour, a couple of minutes, and reach out to me. And I like this. You should always use stuff like that. Yeah. So I do thank you. Have a nice evening. Have a nice conference. See you tomorrow.